Good evening. I welcome you to Strange Nexus, your portal to the realms of the strange, spooky, and unexplained. On tonight's episode, we hear the tale of a young man's encounter with love, of the supernatural type.
I had always dreamed of a grand adventure, and that's exactly what brought me to Europe during my spring break. It was a solo trip, and I had planned to explore as many countries as I could in the short time I had. The history, the culture, and the vibrant nightlife all beckoned to me. Little did I know that my journey would take a terrifying turn, one that would haunt me for the rest of my life. My adventure began in Amsterdam, a city known for its picturesque canals, historic architecture, and liberal culture. I had spent the day wandering the city's charming streets, visiting museums, and trying local delicacies. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, my focus shifted from cultural exploration to the thrill of nightlife. That evening, I found myself in a small, dimly lit bar, where the air was thick with the scent of exotic herbs and tobacco. I mingled with fellow travelers, sharing stories of our journeys and toasting to new friendships. It was in that bar that I first heard whispers of an underground rave, a secret event that promised a night unlike any other. The rumors swirled through the crowd like a seductive melody, and I couldn't resist the call of adventure. With a newfound group of friends, I set out to find the elusive rave, guided only by a mysterious flyer with cryptic directions. As we followed the map, the atmosphere grew increasingly eerie, with the streets of Amsterdam growing darker and quieter. Finally, we arrived at a nondescript warehouse tucked away in a desolate corner of the city. The building's facade was unremarkable, but once we stepped inside, we were transported to another world. The warehouse had been transformed into a surreal and mesmerizing wonderland, with pulsating lights, throbbing music, and people dressed in a kaleidoscope of outlandish costumes. The energy was electric, and the crowd was a mix of locals and fellow travelers. I lost myself in the rhythm of the music, dancing until the early hours of the morning. Amid the pulsating beats, I caught sight of a woman who stood out from the rest. Her beauty was ethereal, and her presence seemed to draw me toward her like a moth to a flame. She had raven black hair that cascaded down her back, and her eyes were the color of deep, mysterious pools. She wore a dress that shimmered like the night sky, and her movements were graceful and hypnotic. I couldn't take my eyes off her, and soon we found ourselves dancing together, our bodies moving in perfect harmony. We spoke only briefly, but her voice was as entrancing as the rest of her. Her name was Livia, and she told me that she was a local, born and raised in Amsterdam. As the night wore on, our connection deepened, and I felt as if we were the only two people in the world. In the heat of the moment, I didn't stop to question the peculiarity of our encounter. The music continued to reverberate in my chest, and my senses were heightened, as if I were experiencing everything in vivid technicolor. In a haze of excitement and desire, Livia and I left the dance floor and found a secluded corner of the warehouse. Time seemed to blur as we shared an intimate moment, our passion intensifying with every passing second. But just as our connection reached its zenith, a sensation of coldness washed over me. I gasped as I realized that Livia's lips were no longer pressed against mine. I looked into her eyes, and they had transformed from pools of mystery to crimson orbs that glowed with an unnatural hunger. My heart raced and I tried to pull away, but her grip on me was unyielding. In that instant, the true horror of the situation dawned on me. Livia was no ordinary woman, she was a vampire. My mind raced with disbelief and I struggled to break free, but her strength was unlike anything I'd ever encountered. I could feel my life force draining away as she sank her fangs into my neck, and a chilling darkness enveloped me. My last conscious thought was of the pulsating music and the blurred faces of the revelers, oblivious to the horror that unfolded in their midst. When I awoke, I was disoriented and groggy, my surroundings shrouded in darkness. My head throbbed with a persistent ache, and I reached up to touch my neck, feeling a tender spot that was still damp with blood. Panic welled up within me as the memories of the previous night came rushing back. I was in a strange bed, and Livia lay beside me, her eyes closed in peaceful repose. I scrambled to my feet, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed to escape this nightmare, to put as much distance as possible between myself and the creature that had taken me. As I tiptoed toward the bedroom door, I noticed the sun streaming in through the window. Relief washed over me, knowing that daylight would keep Livia at bay. My footsteps were cautious as I made my way through the unfamiliar apartment. It was decorated with an assortment of eclectic and antique furnishings, but there was an eerie stillness to the place. The air was heavy with the scent of incense, and the walls were adorned with paintings that depicted scenes of darkness and desire. I reached the front door and slowly turned the knob, but to my dismay, it wouldn't budge. Panic threatened to consume me once more. I was trapped, and my only escape was barred by the very person who had brought me to this dire predicament. I returned to the bedroom and watched Livia's slumbering form, contemplating my next move. My only chance lay in waiting until nightfall, when I could slip away unnoticed. But as I observed her, a nagging thought crept into my mind. Livia seemed so peaceful, almost vulnerable in her sleep. I couldn't help but wonder if there was a trace of humanity left within her, a glimmer of the woman I had met before the darkness had taken her. With trepidation, I approached the bed and reached out to gently touch her hand. At the contact, her eyes fluttered open, revealing the same crimson glow I had seen the night before. But this time, they held a hint of recognition, a spark of familiarity. "Livia," I whispered, my voice trembling, "is there any part of you left? Any part that remembers who you used to be?" Her gaze wavered for a moment, and then, with a pained expression, she nodded. "Yes," she replied in a voice that quivered with emotion. "There is a part of me that remembers, that mourns the life I once had." Tears welled up in her eyes, and in that moment, I saw the torment that had consumed her. She told me her story, of how she had been turned into a vampire against her will, and how she had spent centuries battling the insatiable hunger that came with her new existence. She had been seeking something she had lost long ago, and she had thought she found it in me. As she spoke, I felt a strange mixture of fear and compassion. I knew that I had to escape this situation, but I also couldn't help but empathize with her plight. She was trapped in a never-ending nightmare, just as I had been trapped in her seductive embrace. The day passed in a tense and uneasy silence, and I watched as Livia struggled with her monstrous instincts. The setting sun cast long shadows in the room, and I knew that my time to escape was rapidly approaching. With a heavy heart, I said my goodbyes to the woman who had once been Livia, and I made my way toward the door. I stepped out into the darkening Amsterdam streets, determined to put as much distance between myself and the vampire who had ensnared me. The city was transformed under the cloak of night, its charm and allure now overshadowed by the lurking danger that had become all too real. For days I traveled through Europe, haunted by the memories of that fateful night and the knowledge that vampires were not just creatures of myth. I met others who had encountered the supernatural, each with their own tales of horror and despair. We formed a loose network of survivors, sharing our stories and seeking solace in the company of those who understood the true nature of the world. As time passed, I couldn't shake the feeling that Livia was still out there, searching for something she could never truly find. The experience had left me forever changed, my innocence lost to the darkness that lurked in the hidden corners of the world. My spring break adventure had indeed been unforgettable, but it was a memory I would carry with me as a warning to all who dared to seek the thrill of the unknown. In the heart of Europe, I had come face to face with the supernatural, and the horrors I had encountered would stay with me until the end of my days.
This reality never ceases to amaze me. What a tale. Now click subscribe and like this video for more Strange Nexus.